She looked straight through me in a chandelier-bright ballroom like I was a stranger who'd wandered into the wrong life. Then she lifted a bucket and made sure everyone saw what she thought I was worth. The Hamilton Grand Hotel smelled like expensive perfume and borrowed confidence. Crystal chandeliers threw clean light across suits that cost more than some people's cars. Everyone was laughing just a little too loud, like the room itself needed applause to breathe. Melissa moved through it like she belonged to it. Not my wife. Not the woman who used to steal fries off my plate and fall asleep on my shoulder during late movies. This Melissa wore a black dress that turned heads and an expression that turned people into furniture. I stood near the edge of the ballroom with a simple suit and a steady face. I didn't come to make a scene. I came to watch, to see what was real when there were witnesses. Her co-workers clustered around her. Her family was there too. Tom Grant with his heavy handshake and heavier ego, Linda Grant scanning the room like it owed her something, and Kyle looking for someone weaker to laugh at. And beside Melissa, close enough to count as a statement, stood Brandon Shaw. Senior manager. Clean smile. Easy charm. The kind of man who learned early that people forgive a lot if you grin while you take. Melissa spotted me across the room and her eyes flashed. Sharp, quick panic. Not concerned. Not guilt. Panic. Like I'd spilled something on her brand. She crossed the room fast, heels clicking like a countdown. Conversations thinned behind her. People felt something coming and leaned in for it. "What are you doing here?" she hissed when she reached me. A smile still painted on for the crowd. "I'm here," I said. My voice didn't rise. "That's all." Her jaw tightened. She looked past me, then back at my face like she was measuring how much damage she could do with one strike. Then she turned, grabbed a maintenance bucket near the service door. Dirty mop water, gray at the edges, little flecks floating like proof, and lifted it with both hands. There are moments where time doesn't slow down. It sharpens. Melissa looked me dead in the face. Not angry, not emotional, just decided. "Unemployed loser," she said, loud enough to carry. "You're not qualified to be here," and she dumped it over my head. Cold hit first, then the stink, floor cleaner, old water, something sour. It soaked through my shirt, ran down my collar, darkened my suit like a bruise spreading in real time. The room recoiled. A few people gasped. Phones rose like reflexes. Someone laughed and cut it off halfway when they realized nobody else joined. Tom Grant clapped once, like he'd just watched a joke land. Kyle smirked. Brandon's smile faltered, just for a second, like he'd seen the cost of standing near her. Heat climbed my neck. My hands wanted to close into fists. Every instinct begged for violence or shouting or something that would feel like dignity in the moment. I didn't give them that. I breathed in through my nose. Slow. Controlled. I looked at Melissa's face, close enough to see the satisfaction she was trying to hide. And I understood it with a clarity that made my jaw tighten years later. She didn't do this by accident. She did it because she believed I was safe to hurt. I didn't wipe my face. I didn't argue. I didn't plead. I turned, water dripping onto marble, and walked out while the room kept filming, because they thought this was the end of me. It wasn't. It was her last free swing. Mornings in our apartment always looked normal from the outside. Small kitchen, cheap coffee, a pan warming up while the city woke up behind the blinds. I'd crack eggs, toast bread, and keep my movements quiet. The kind of routine that says steady. The kind of man people don't bother to remember. Melissa would come in already half-dressed for the role she wore all day. Hair neat, makeup sharp, phone in hand. She didn't just get ready. She assembled herself. Then she'd kiss my cheek like it was a task on a list and slide into her heels. "Big day," she'd say sometimes, like she was talking to a coworker. I'd nod. "Drive safe." She liked that version of me. Ryan Parker. Plain husband, reliable, clean, nothing flashy. The guy who didn't make her feel small because he didn't take up space. She'd leave for Parker Industries wearing confidence like perfume. And I'd clean the dishes, wipe the counter, and wait long enough for the hallway to empty. Then I'd take the back stairwell down, because the front lobby had neighbors who liked gossip. I'd get into a boring sedan, Gray, forgettable, the kind of car nobody takes pictures of, and drive the quiet route out of town. The estate office sat behind a line of trees and a gate that didn't look like much until you tried to get through it. Security knew my face. They didn't salute. They didn't talk. They just opened the way because that's what they were paid to do. Inside, it was all glass and wood and silence. No posters. No motivational slogans. Just clean lines and numbers that mattered. A desk that wasn't there to impress anyone. Files that weren't there for show. The real reports landed there. The ones that didn't get passed around for gossip. The ones with margins and acquisitions and payroll lists and names that could rise or disappear based on a signature. My father built Parker Industries into a machine that fed a lot of mouths, including Melissa's family. When he died, he didn't leave it to a committee. He left it to me with rules. A structure designed to keep my name off the day-to-day noise. Shells. Trusts. Boards that could posture while I held the wheel. A clean separation between ownership and the office drama that turns people into monsters. Most people at Parker Industries didn't know who owned it. They knew the company. They knew corporate. They knew there was a CEO somewhere, but CEOs were myths to people like Melissa's family. Something you pointed at, blamed, or tried to impress. Melissa never asked. Not really. She liked believing I was simple. That was the point. I wasn't hiding success because I was ashamed of it. I was hiding it because I wanted one thing in my life that was real. A marriage where I was chosen for me, not for a logo on a building. Turns out, the only thing Melissa respected about me was the version she invented. Powerless, harmless, easy to disrespect without consequences. And in that ballroom, under those chandeliers, she proved it in front of God and everyone. Now I wasn't wondering who she was. I was deciding what I was going to do about it. The first sign wasn't lipstick on a collar or a late-night confession. It was her hand. One morning, she stood by the mirror tightening an earring, and I watched her slide her wedding ring off like it was nothing. Not dramatic. Not sneaky. Just casual, like removing a watch before washing dishes. I didn't say a word. I didn't need to. The silence made her glance at me. "It gets in the way," she said. "In the way of what?" I asked. Her eyes narrowed, and she smiled without warmth. "Work." Then she dropped the ring into her purse like it was loose change and walked out the door. That's when the marriage started splitting into two versions. At home, she wanted stability. Quiet place to land. Someone to hold the world steady while she chased it. At work, she wanted to look available. Single, ambitious, untouchable. A woman with no attachments and no apologies. I started noticing patterns the way you notice cracks in a wall once you've seen the first one. The way she angled her left hand away when she answered calls. The way she stopped saying "my husband" and started saying "we" or nothing at all. The way her tone changed when she talked about the office. Sharper, hungrier, like she was speaking a different language. Sunday dinners with her family didn't help. Tom Grant liked to talk about real men, in a voice that filled the room. Linda would nod along, eyes cutting to me when she said things like, "Ambition is everything." Kyle, always Kyle, would toss out little jokes about guys who peak early, then laugh like he'd invented humor. Melissa never defended me. She didn't even look uncomfortable. She sat there, sipping wine, letting them aim their contempt at me like it was normal weather. I swallowed it for longer than I should have. Told myself love meant patience. That marriage had seasons. That she was stressed. But patience can rot if you use it like duct tape. At some point it stops being graceful. It starts with permission. And Melissa took that permission and wore it like perfume. Brandon Shaw didn't come into our lives with fireworks. He came in like a habit. At first, he was just a name Melissa said too casually. "Brandon thinks we should restructure. Brandon wants me on this project." Always Brandon. Always we. Like he wasn't a coworker. Like he was a second voice in her head. Then it turned into timing. Melissa started coming home later on the same nights every week. Tuesdays, Thursdays, sometimes a department push on Saturday that somehow needed her in person. She'd walk in with that polished exhaustion. Hair still perfect, lipstick touched up, eyes too bright for someone who'd been buried in spreadsheets. A tired person comes home and collapses. Melissa came home wired. She'd toss her purse down, kick off her heels, and drift through the kitchen like she was still on a stage. Sometimes she'd hum, soft, "I'm almost happy," like the day had fed her. I'd hand her dinner. She'd pick at it. Her phone would light up, and she'd angle the screen away without thinking. Not hiding exactly, just normalizing it, like privacy had become her default. One night, she took a shower and left her phone on the counter. It buzzed twice, 3 times. I didn't grab it like a desperate man. I didn't need to. The screen lit up with a name and a preview that told me everything without saying it outright. Brandon. Same place as last time. Don't be late. No hearts. No baby. Just routine. That was the part that chilled me, the way it read like a schedule. I didn't confront her. Not because I was scared of the truth, but because I wanted the truth clean. Verified. Something solid enough to hold in court if it had to. I started watching the way I watch numbers. Quietly, consistently, without emotion clouding the read. I checked timestamps. I checked hotel charges routed through corporate accounts and client meetings that mysteriously didn't exist. I pulled security logs that most people didn't even know were stored. I matched dates to her lies, and the picture formed in the simplest way. Brandon always hovered near her in office photos. Brandon always got the best version of her smile. Brandon always had a reason to be close. And Melissa? Melissa wasn't being stolen. She was volunteering. I'd sit across from her at our small kitchen table while she told me about her long day, and I'd listen like a man listening to a stranger read a script. I watched her hands, her eyes, the way she said my name when she needed something soft and practiced. I wasn't interested in winning an argument. I was interested in understanding what kind of person could smile in my kitchen after spending the day building a separate life. Once I understood that, the next step wasn't rage. It was strategy. 3 days before the gala, Melissa brought it up like she was announcing an award she hadn't won yet. "Friday's the company gala," she said, scrolling her phone, already half smiling. "It's a big deal. Executives, donors, media, all of it." I kept my voice neutral. "Spouses go." Her eyes lifted slowly, and something hard settled behind them, as if my question insulted her. "Why?" she asked. "Because you're my wife," I said. "That's usually how it works." She laughed once. Short, sharp, not amused, dismissive. "Ryan," she said, like she was talking to a child who didn't understand how the world worked. "You can't come." I blinked. "Can't? Or you don't want me to?" Her jaw tightened. She put her phone down carefully, like she was placing a weapon on the table. "You'd embarrass me," she said. Direct. No softening. In front of everyone. I didn't flinch, but I felt the words hit. Clean, deliberate. "In front of who?" I asked. "Executives," she said. "People who matter. My family. My coworkers." Her eyes narrowed like she was building a case. "You don't fit that world." I let that sit. The apartment was quiet except for the refrigerator hum and her breathing. "What world is that?" I asked. "The one you sleep in and come home from?" Her nostrils flared. "Don't do that." "Do what?" "Make it ugly." She leaned back like she was above the whole conversation. "I want one night where I can be seen without you beside me. One night where I don't have to." She stopped herself, but not fast enough. "Explain you." That's what she meant. I stared at her for a second, really stared, and the strangest thing happened. I didn't feel desperate. I didn't feel the old urge to convince her to love me right, to bargain for basic respect. I felt tired, clear, done. "Okay," I said. She blinked, thrown off. "Okay, yeah," I said. "Have your night." The quietness in my voice seemed to bother her more than anger would have. She wanted me to fight so she could call it insecurity. She wanted me to be loud so she could label me a problem. Instead, I stood up, rinsed my plate, and set it in the sink like the conversation was weather. Melissa watched me like she was trying to find the hook under my calm. "You're not mad?" she asked. I looked at her once. No, it wasn't a lie. Not exactly. Mad was noisy. What I felt was something cleaner, like a door closing. She picked her phone back up, satisfied too quickly, and walked into the bedroom to pick out a dress like nothing important had just been said. And I stood in the kitchen, staring at the counter, knowing one thing for sure. If she wanted a night without me, she was going to get more than that. Friday night, the Hamilton Grand lit up like it was trying to be seen from space. Valets in black gloves. A red carpet that didn't lead anywhere important. Just into a room full of people desperate to feel important. Parker Industries banners hung like flags. Champagne moved like water. Laughter rose in waves. Rehearsed and hungry. I parked 2 blocks away in the same boring sedan and walked in like I belonged. Because I did. I kept it simple. Dark suit, clean shoes, no flash. The kind of look that doesn't beg for attention and doesn't apologize for being there. At the entrance, a security guard glanced at me, then looked twice. His posture changed a fraction. "Evening, sir," he said quietly. I nodded and kept moving. Inside, Melissa's family was already soaking in it. Tom Grant stood near the bar like it was his office, laughing too loud, gripping a glass like it proved something. Linda scanned the room, eyes always climbing toward whoever looked richest. Kyle floated between clusters, throwing jokes like darts, looking for someone to land on. They weren't guests. They were tourists in a life they thought they'd finally earned. Melissa was further in, surrounded by co-workers, smiling bright, shoulders back, ring nowhere in sight. Brandon Shaw was close, too close, leaning in when she spoke like he'd paid for the privilege. I didn't head straight for her. I stayed on the perimeter and watched the room the way I watch a board meeting. Who leans toward who avoids who's performing, who's hunting. Then Melissa's eyes swept past me. She froze. It wasn't a dramatic stop. It was a microsecond, her smile holding in place while her body betrayed her. Like her brain needed time to accept what her eyes were telling it. Then she recovered fast, too fast. Her hand tightened on her glass. Her jaw clenched, and she started moving. Not toward me like a wife, toward me like a crisis. As she crossed the room, her co-workers turned to follow her line of sight. Brandon's expression shifted. Confused first, then annoyed, like a man realizing he hadn't been told the full story. Tom noticed too. He leaned forward, eyes narrowing, ready to enjoy whatever was coming. Melissa reached me and stopped close, smiling still up for anyone watching. Her voice dropped low, sharp enough to cut. "You're trying to ruin me," she said. I looked at her calmly. "You're doing fine on your own." Her eyes flashed. "You don't understand what this is." "I understand exactly what it is," I said. "A room full of people who clap for masks." Her breathing tightened. She glanced around. At phones, at faces, at Brandon, at her family. Not once did she look at me like I mattered as a person. She looked at me like I was a stain. And that was the real turning point. In that ballroom, under those lights, I wasn't her partner. I was her liability. Melissa's gaze flicked past my shoulder, toward the service door, toward a maintenance cart tucked near the wall. I followed her eyes, and I saw the bucket. Melissa's hand went to the bucket like she'd been waiting for permission. She didn't hesitate. She didn't look around for a witness. The witnesses were the point. She dragged it out from the service door with a sharp tug, water sloshing, mop head half submerged like an insult with teeth. A few people noticed and leaned in. Phones started rising before anything even happened, because cruelty is entertainment when it isn't yours. "Melissa," I said, calm, not pleading, just a name. She turned, eyes flat. "You really thought you could walk in here like you belong?" "I do." That did it. Something in her snapped into performance. She lifted the bucket with both hands, shoulders tense, mouth curling like she'd finally found a way to put me where she thought I lived. "Everyone," she said, loud and bright. "This is Ryan, my husband." She paused like the word tasted bad. "He's between jobs." Tom Grant let out a laugh, deep and satisfied. Kyle leaned toward someone and whispered, already collecting his little moment. Linda's eyes lit up. This wasn't embarrassing to her. It was a sport. Melissa stepped closer, close enough for me to smell her perfume over the dirty water. She smiled like she was doing the room a favor. "He's basically a charity," she said. "An unemployed loser who isn't qualified to be here." I saw Brandon's face change. Not sympathy, calculation. The moment he realized she didn't just disrespect me. She weaponized people. And he was standing in range. Melissa tipped the bucket. Cold slammed over my shoulders, my chest, down my sleeves. It soaked the suit, darkened it, and clung to me like shame. The smell hit next, chemical, stale, sour. A few people gasped. Someone laughed and stopped when they realized it wasn't catching. The room went weirdly quiet for half a second, like it needed to hear what I'd do. My body wanted to explode. I felt it, the heat in my neck, the pressure behind my eyes, the old instinct to make them regret it immediately. That's when I made the choice. I didn't move fast. I didn't wipe my face. I didn't give the crowd the relief of a reaction. I looked at Melissa, really looked. There was no remorse in her eyes, just satisfaction because she believed this was safe. She believed I was small enough to hurt without consequence. I nodded once. Not approval, not forgiveness, just acknowledgement. "Enjoy your night," I said. Her smile twitched. "What?" But I was already turning. I walked away, wet shoes squeaking softly on marble. Cameras tracked me. People parted like I carried something contagious. Tom's clapping faded behind me. Kyle's smirk followed. Brandon didn't move. He just watched, suddenly uneasy about what he'd attached himself to. Outside the ballroom, the hallway was quiet. Carpet instead of marble. No lights for show. Just exit signs and air that didn't smell like lies. I pulled my phone out with steady hands. One call. One voice. "Bring the car around," I said, "and get the leadership team back inside." A pause. Then, respectful and immediate, "Yes, sir." I ended the call and kept walking, water dripping behind me like a trail. Power isn't loud. It's controlled. I changed shirts in the back seat, not because I cared what they thought, but because optics are part of war. The SUV rolled up to the service entrance like it owned the curb. Security stepped out first, quiet, trained, no drama. Two senior executives followed, faces tight, eyes already scanning for fallout. They didn't ask questions in the car. They'd heard my voice. That was enough. We walked in through a side corridor. The hotel staff moved out of the way without being told. Doors opened before hands reached them. That's what real authority looks like. People making space before you demand it. Inside the ballroom, the atmosphere had shifted into that aftertaste you get when a joke goes too far. People were still holding their phones, but now they didn't look excited. They looked nervous about what they just recorded. The MC was on stage, smiling too hard, trying to glue the night back together. A security lead leaned in and murmured something. The MC's smile faltered. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, voice suddenly careful, "we have a special arrival tonight. Please welcome Parker Industries CEO." A wave ran through the room. Not applause. More like electricity. Heads turned. Conversations died mid-sentence. Melissa was near the center of it, still holding her glass, still riding the high of what she'd done, until she saw the executives moving, saw security forming lanes, saw the way the room started behaving like it had been reminded of gravity. Her face drained as I stepped into the light. Not wet, not disheveled, just clean, composed, and finished with her. For a second, she didn't recognize me as anything except the man she tried to erase. Then it hit her all at once, hard enough that her lips parted without sound. "No," she whispered. I didn't look at her. I walked straight to the stage. The MC backed away like instinct. One of the executives handed me a mic. Another handed me a thin folder. Printed documents, signatures ready, process already moving. I faced the room, calm, steady. Tonight was supposed to be about celebrating work, I said. My voice carried without effort. Integrity, professionalism, respect. A few people shifted like they wanted to disappear into their suits. But what happened here, I continued, was a reminder. Some people confuse humility with weakness. And when they think there's no consequence, they show you who they really are. I paused just long enough for every phone to keep recording. Melissa Grant, I said clearly. Tom Grant, Linda Grant, Kyle Grant. Melissa jerked like her name was a slap. Effective immediately, I said, your employment with Parker Industries is terminated for misconduct and conduct unbecoming of our standards. Security will escort you out. HR will contact you with formal documentation. Tom started to speak. Angry, blustering. You can't. I lifted a hand once. Not dramatic. Final. You are also designated ineligible for rehire, I said. And Parker Industries will not provide references, partnerships, or vendor access to any entity attempting to place you through our network. Kyle's grin was gone. Linda's mouth opened and closed like a fish. Tom's face turned red in the way men do when the world stops caring about their voice. Melissa stepped forward, eyes glassy, desperate for a conversation she could twist. Ryan, I didn't know. I looked at her then, just once. You knew enough to do it in public, I said. Quiet, surgical. That's all I needed. Then I turned away from her like she wasn't the center of anything anymore. Security moved. The Grants started protesting. People made room not out of respect for them, out of fear of being seen with them. Melissa tried to speak again, but I didn't give her the relief. I handed the mic back, stepped off the stage, and walked through the same ballroom she'd used as a weapon, except now it was silent. And everyone understood the same thing at the same time. Cruelty doesn't rewind once it's witnessed. The internet had its fun for about 48 hours. Clips, reactions, slow-motion edits of the bucket. People arguing in comments like pain was a sport. Then the world moved on like it always does. But real consequences don't trend. They settle in. Melissa's badge stopped working before the night was over. Her email access died quietly. Security walked her out past coworkers who suddenly couldn't meet her eyes. Tom's connections turned into voicemails. Linda's social circle got colder by the hour. Kyle tried to laugh it off until nobody laughed back. Brandon Shaw disappeared like a man who'd just seen fire spread. He sent one message to Melissa, something short, self-protective and final, and then blocked her. He didn't love her. He loved the risk while he thought it was free. 2 mornings later, a courier knocked on our apartment door. I signed once. Calm hands. Clean ink. Melissa came home to papers on the kitchen table and a silence she hadn't earned the right to break. What is this? She asked, voice thin. Divorce, I said. She picked up the first page, eyes moving fast, then slowing as the reality sank in. She flipped through it like speed could change meaning. This isn't fair, she said. I'm your wife. You were, I corrected. Her face tightened. You can't leave me with nothing. I looked at her and didn't feel hate. Hate still gives someone a place inside you. What I felt was clarity. My father set the structure years ago, I said, before you and I ever met. The company isn't marital property. My assets are protected. You don't get to take what you never owned. She stared at me like the floor had dropped out. So you were hiding it. I was protecting it, I said, and testing you. That's sick, she snapped, trying to turn it into a moral angle she could stand on. You set me up. I didn't argue. I didn't raise my voice. I just watched her reach for any story that made her the victim. In court a few weeks later, she tried the same thing with tears and a trembling voice. I didn't know. I was under pressure. It was a mistake. The judge didn't care about her performance. The paperwork was clean. The prenup and trust terms were clean. My attorney spoke in plain sentences that didn't leave room for drama. When it was over, Melissa followed me into the hallway, like she couldn't accept that a door had closed without her permission. Ryan, she said, voice breaking, please, I didn't know who you were. I stopped walking, turned once. Not to comfort her, just to end the last lie. That's the only honest thing you've said, I told her. You didn't humiliate me by accident. You did it because you believed I was safe to hurt. Her mouth opened. No words came out. I nodded small final and walked away. Not because I was cruel. Because mercy without accountability is just another way to be used. And I was done being used.
Subscribe and stay one step ahead of cheaters. And trust me, the next story makes this one look like a fairy tale.